The Church of Christ follows Christ's words. Where he does speak, there we are heard. Where he is silent, we are too. What Christ commands is what we do. Work for the Master every day. Help lead the erring to his way. Believe his word, obey his command. The Church of Christ will forever stand.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this study of God's Word. I hope that each of you are doing well and are planning to worship God this morning. We would love for you to join us at Pyburn Street Church of Christ. We will have Bible classes for all ages at 9 a.m., followed by worship at 9:50. We will also gather this evening at 6 for evening worship, and again on Wednesday evening at 6 for midweek Bible study. Today is the day that our nation has set aside to honor mothers, and we wish to extend a happy Mother's Day to each mother in the listening audience this morning. If you're blessed to still have your mother with you, then make a special effort to express to her just how much that she means to you, and not just on this day, but each and every day. The Apostle Paul wrote in Ephesians 6, verses 1 through 3, that we are to honor our mothers and our fathers. Yet, he does not provide any age limit to this. In fact, Paul, when he wrote this, was writing to adults. We honor our mothers in many ways. We honor them with gifts. We honor them by listening to them, to the things that they instruct us. And some honor them by attending worship with them on special occasions, such as Mother's Day. But in the text that I mentioned just previously in Ephesians chapter 6, I believe we see some things that we as children and fathers could do to honor our mothers and the mothers of our children. We honor our mothers by understanding the principle of submission. God has never changed his mind about the lesson of obedience. We cannot be right with God and wrong with our parents. The older brother of Luke 15 learned this, and when he came in from the field, he was very disrespectful to his father. His relationship with his father was strained because of his strained relationship with his brother. Thus, the principle is if our relationship with our parents is strained, then we're going to have difficulty with our relationship with our Father in heaven. We must submit to our parents. It's a sin to disobey our parents. When we break a rule with our parents, we're sinning against God. Many times, parents are contributing to their children's lack of submission by not teaching and reinforcing their children to obey from a very young age. Because if they do not start when they're toddlers, then when they grow older, they learn to disrespect all forms of authority. Some parents say of their disobedient children, well, he's just full of mischief. But folks, there is a difference between being a child, being mischievous, and being truly disobedient. In Romans chapter 1, Paul described a group of the most wicked people written in the Bible, and among these are those who are disobedient to their parents, Romans 1 and verse 30. We also honor our mothers by understanding the principle of sufficiency. Many people have a hard time with the principle of submission, but it is understandable in view of our American culture, a culture that renounces submission and declares independence. The reason we have a hard time with submission is this principle of sufficiency. For example, if we're having a hard time submitting to parents, to God, to the elders of the church, or to others in authority, then it may be that we need to ask God to help. Are we allowing the Lord to help us, or are we resisting the Lord's help? Now, we all have probably thought that my parents are just behind the times. They're 20 years out of step with everything that's going on today. Well, if so, maybe we need to pray. Notice the phrase that we see in Ephesians 6 and verse 1, in the Lord. Some people think that this command applies to parents who are Christians, but it does not. The point is that if we want to be right with the Lord, then we have to obey and honor our parents. Thus, we are to honor them because of the help that they provide for us. Paul asks the question, who is sufficient for these things? 2 Corinthians 2 and verse 16. Well, the answer is found in the next chapter, 2 Corinthians 3 and verse 5. Our sufficiency is of God. In fact, Paul records Jesus saying to him, my grace is sufficient for thee, 2 Corinthians 12 and verse 9. We also honor our mothers by understanding the principle of survival. The reason that we are to submit to them and to have our sufficiency in God is so that we might have a long life. No one knows how much longer our nation is going to stand if our homes keep crumbling the way that they are. Except the Lord builds the house, except the Lord keeps the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. Psalm 127 and verse 1. Indeed, friends, we live in a nation that is rotting and decaying from the inside. And I'm afraid that one day God is going to become tired of looking upon our sin, and His patience is going to cease. But moreover, since God made Eve to be a helper to Adam, and fathers are foolish if we do not listen to the mother of our children, especially when it comes to child rearing, then we can honor the mothers of our children by being devoted to our families. If we took the negative out, Ephesians 6 and verse 4 would read, fathers, love your children, because the opposite of provoke is to be devoted. The mothers of our children want us fathers to carry out the responsibilities of being the Christian leader in the home. Many men are devoted to many things, to work, to hobbies, to other interests. But how many men are truly devoted to their families? Dr. James Dobson said, the greatest threat to the American home is a passive father. This is the father who is not devoted and who lets the mother do everything that the father should be doing. Now, fathers, you may be working many, many hours each week, and you may feel as if you are too tired, but do not be passive. And fathers, I'm speaking to myself just as much as I am to anyone else that's listening to this problem or to this program today. This is a problem in our society. But we cannot be passive. It's so, if we do this, then it will destroy the home. It will destroy the nation. It will tear apart the church. But why did Paul address this only to fathers? I believe it's because Paul knew the tendency of fathers to become passive, and that mothers would do their jobs without question. The burden of rearing and training the children is not anywhere placed upon just the mother, but the fathers are to be the spiritual leaders of the home. And if we want to honor the mothers in our lives, then men, we need to be those strong spiritual leaders in our homes. Also, fathers can honor the mothers of their children by understanding the necessity of discipline. We read in Proverbs 13 and verse 24 from the wise man Solomon, he that spareth his rod spoileth the child, and foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him. Proverbs 22 and verse 15. Naturally, we are not talking about child abuse. Folks, I grew up in a home where my mother and my father spanked me if I did something wrong, but they did not abuse me. We have become so afraid of child abuse today that we have become a non-disciplined society, and we're suffering because of it. But as fathers, we need to be handing down that godly instruction, that godly correction that needs to take place. The only way that we're going to be able to train up our children in a way that they are going to become good, productive citizens and especially become children of God is if we drive that foolishness from their hearts. We teach them right from wrong. We hold them accountable to the things that they do. But also, fathers can honor the mothers of their children by understanding the principle of direction. In which direction are we as fathers leading our families? People often blame the church when they need to be looking inwardly. Jesus can make our families what they ought to be. Jesus can make the family of God what it ought to be. The only gift that we have from God to take with us to heaven is our children. If we understood the impact of this, it might make a difference with us. What direction are we giving to our families? Are we showing our children that leisure activities are more important than the church? Are we showing our families that the school activities are more important than religious activities? Are we showing our families that sleep is more important than our soul? What are we showing to our children? Are we giving them a strong, positive Christian example? No, there is no guarantee that if we live a faithful Christian life before our children, that they're never going to go astray. Sadly, there are many good Christian parents who have children that are living in rebellion, that have gone away into sin, even though that's not the way they were raised. But if we train up our children in a good, strong Christian home, the chances of them going astray are much less. And even if they do go astray at some point in their life, they may come back to that realization. They may come back to the knowledge that they were taught at their parents' feet and come back to the Lord. Sadly, we see this take place so often after a parent has passed away. And so many times we look at those situations and we think, oh, how much we wish those parents had still been there to see their child come back to the Lord. But the thing that's the most important is that child did come back to the Lord. They came back as a result of their remembrance of their godly parents, the things that were instilled in them at a young age. But fathers, we need to be the ones that are directing our families, guiding those mothers that are in our life, those mothers of our children, giving them the support that they need to fulfill their role. But also, while many children are honoring their mothers, we do not need to turn a blind eye to those who are hurting or are struggling. There are many children today who are celebrating Mother's Day for the first time without their mother. Over the past year, due to the ravages of COVID-19, there are so many people who have lost their loved ones, who've lost their mothers, and who are facing this holiday today for the first time without their mother. Many females are also struggling this Mother's Day because they cannot be mothers. There have been numerous times throughout the years that I've been in ministry that ladies have come up to me and have asked me to please refrain from preaching on mothers on Mother's Day because it is such a struggle. They want to have children, they yearn to have children, but for some reason they've been unable to do so. And many females struggle with Mother's Day because they've not been able to be mothers. We need to be sure and pray for these individuals. And if God has still blessed us with our mothers, then let us honor them on this day and every day, just as the Apostle Paul declared. Friends, we want to thank you so much for joining us for our program on this Lord's Day. We hope that you will seriously consider the things that we've discussed, that you will consider worshiping with us today, and that God will bless you with a wonderful day.